Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Chambers. My unofficial title is Accessibility Evangelist here at Soaptide. So today we're going to dive into what the ADA digital accessibility changes actually mean and what you can do about them without spiraling into a panic. So this is going to be a practical, plain English, and maybe even a little bit of fun. No legalese, no guilt trips, just what's changed, who's affected, and how to start fixing it. Right. Some quick housekeeping notes. We are recording this. We will be sending out the recording hopefully within a few days, uh, with captions and a transcript, and also the companion guide for this webinar. Captions should be something you can turn on. Today we have Jordan, the animator behind our awesome videos. There's two in the deck today, hanging out in the chat. So he'll be here to answer questions as we go. About me. Um, I started making websites back in 1996. I love teaching tech in particular. I got my Microsoft certified trainer back in 1997. I'd like to think I don't look as old as I am. I have over a decade now in accessibility, and I'm basically a huge nerd. I view my role as a rabble rouser. I'm trying to change hearts and minds, and I'll do it in all sorts of ways. And a fun fact about me is that I was immortalized as a minor character in a video game. And since everyone asks, it was World of Warcraft. And everyone can celebrate with me right now. Tomorrow marks 14 years that I've been at Silktide, and I'm kind of excited about it. So I put this slide at the beginning of almost every deck I do because this is some good trivia. Also, I have a tendency to use this shortening, so it's good that I mention it early. You may have seen this abbreviation. It's A11Y or ALLY. It's short for accessibility because there are 11 letters between A and Y. It's not exactly the most accessible word. So now if you see that pop up in tools or hashtags or my slides, you know what it means. Also, it's a numeronym, which is words that use numbers, but trust me, most of them are awful. So, today's objectives. We're going to talk about what changed. We're going to talk about what counts. And if you saw this webinar previously, there's a new section called the elephant in the room because there's a lot going on right now and we do need to talk about it. I'm going to give you a plan that won't break you. Then we're going to talk about what not to do. There's a section called How About Today? At the end, we're going to give you a bunch of free resources, and then we'll do Q&A. Right? Today's message is simply, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to begin. So, what this is. Before we dive in, I'm going to tell you what this presentation is and what it isn't. So this is meant to be straight talk. No jargon, no theoretical frameworks, no academic papers, just what you need to know. I'm going to give you clear steps. You're going to get a roadmap you can actually follow. And no guilt. Look, if your digital stuff isn't accessible right now, you're not a bad person. You're not failing your community. You just haven't had the right information. And that's going to change today. I'm not here to guilt you. I'm here to guide you. And this slide has an image of a big no symbol over the ultimate thesaurus, which I'm pretty sure is the design team making fun of me. So, take a deep breath with me. I know how much this can feel overwhelming. You're thinking about your website, your PDFs, your online forms, wondering how you're going to tackle all of that with your current workload and budget. This is normal, and we're going to handle it. So, this is Master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda. He knows that inner peace comes from having a plan. So, right now, you might be feeling like everything is on fire, right? I mean, the 24th to the 26th, I keep getting them confused. It's not that far away. It's the last Friday in April. But we're going to get you to this Zen place where accessibility isn't a big, scary thing. It's just going to be part of how you do your work. So let's begin. What changed? Specificity. For 34 years or so now, the ADA said be accessible without defining what that meant for digital. It was like being told to drive safely without knowing the speed limit. And now we know. it's going to be WCAG 2.1 AA. That's the speed limit. So it's the same law and the same requirements, but now there's no guessing what accessible means. But you may be thinking, what is WCAG? So here's just a bit of one of our videos. Got lots of stuff on YouTube. And before you alley peeps come for me, this video is from April 2022, so 2.1 was the latest standard.
WCAG, WCAG, WCAG. The way you say it varies, but the rules are universal. Did I say rules? They're actually guidelines. Insert a witty pirate joke here. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines are a list of rules, just go with it, for making the web available to everyone. This may seem daunting at first, but I'm going to walk you through it. You'll often hear or see things like, you must be compliant with WCAG 2.1 AA. But what does that even mean? Let's break it down a little. WCAG has a standard, like 1.0 or 2.1, and a level, that's A, AA, or AAA. Here at Silktide, we like to say that A is must do, AA is should do, and AAA is reaching for the stars. So when the legal requirement is WCAG 2.1 AA, it means it's using the latest standard, 2.1, and level AA, the middle one. AA is tougher to master, but still well within the reality of the web today.
So, let's talk about what counts. It's a pretty simple rule. If it's public-facing and it's digital, it counts. Your not public-facing stuff that you're using internally counts too, but the enforcement on that is going to come from different places. So when I say public-facing and digital, I mean all of this stuff, right? Your website, obviously, but also those PDFs everyone loves to ignore, your customer portals, your online forms, especially those forms that people need to fill out to get services, videos that don't have captions, mobile apps, learning management systems, those kiosks in the lobby, even embedded tools like chatbots and calendars. I know, it's a lot. How many of you have a third-party tool you assumed was accessible? We'll come back to that. Look, this really isn't about compliance checklists or avoiding lawsuits, right? It's about whether people can actually use what you build. When someone can't navigate your website with a screen reader, they can't apply for that program. When you only offer inaccessible PDFs, they can't get the information they need. You're not just risking legal trouble, you're preventing people from accessing the services they need. And that matters. So, when does this all need to be done? Well, it depends on the size of the population you serve. If you're a state or local government serving 50,000 or more people, you've got until April 24th of this year. Like I said, it's the last Friday of the month. Smaller governments, those serving under 50,000 people, they actually get an extra year, and it doesn't kick in until April 26th of 2027. This is based on the census data for your jurisdiction. It's not just how many people work for you or how many people you think live in your community. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, because some of you came into this room today wondering whether any of this still matters, whether the rules are changing, whether you should wait and see. And we need to address that head on. The rule is the rule until it isn't. So before we get into the roadmap, I want to have a quick, honest conversation about where we actually are right now. Because I know some of you have been watching the news and wondering what on earth is going on. Here's the straight answer. The rule exists. It was finalized. The deadlines are real, right? We just talked about them. That has not changed. But what we also know is that the Department of Justice is working on something behind closed doors. We don't know what. It could be a rollback, a delay, a narrowing. Genuinely, nobody knows. But here's the thing I really need you to hear. Uncertainty is not the same as safety. And the Department of Justice, I don't think they're going to be the only problem anymore. For a long time, the mental model for ADA enforcement was pretty simple, right? With Title II, it's comply or the Department of Justice will come knocking. Uh, Federal investigation, maybe compliance agreements, maybe even bad press, right? That was the threat model. But that model is outdated. Private litigation has always been possible under Title II, but it's really rare. Right? And I think that's about to change. But to understand why, you need to understand one word: standing. This is where that word matters way more than you can imagine. So, at a high level, standing just means, can you prove you were actually affected, right? Did this person genuinely need the service, or are they just filing lawsuits at scale? In the private sector, Title III, right? Lawsuits are everywhere. Uh, but the courts, especially in places like New York, Kansas, and some other places, they're putting in new laws to try to curtail some of this. They're pushing back. They're asking harder questions. Uh, so the courts are asking, did this person actually intend to use the service? Were they genuinely impacted? Even the Supreme Court, it was a moot case, right, where they recognized that they couldn't actually make a decision on it because people had tried to pull out. But they spent time talking about standing in ADA cases. Uh, that's making things harder for these plaintiff attorneys. Right? Um, so, what happens when one path gets harder? Well, you look for the easier one. And if we think about the world you operate in, if a disabled person is trying to access benefits or housing or education or public health information, that question of why are they here, right? They're here because they need it and because they're entitled to the services. That's standing. It's clear, it's defensible, it's hard to challenge. And honestly, it's a lot less messy in the press than going after local independent restaurants. I know. I hate fear mongering, but I think we need to talk about this because I'm actually quite concerned that this is where they're gonna go next, right? So, what do you actually do with all of this? The answer is not to panic. And it's also not settle quickly and hope it goes away. As we've seen in Title II, that just signals that you're a good target and you'll get hit again. And as an aside, also don't use overlays. They're like lightning rods for this kind of problem. The real solution here is actually kind of simple. It's make yourself a bad target. When you have an ADA case, the plaintiff is essentially asking for court intervention, and they have to show that the intervention is necessary. So if you can demonstrate with documentation, with evidence, with a real plan that you already know your issues and you're actively fixing them, that argument becomes so much harder to make. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be demonstrably trying, which conveniently is what the next section is about. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a roadmap, right? 6 steps that will get you from where you are now to where you need to be. This isn't theory. This is the same process we use with our clients, and it works. I'm going to give you all a copy of the full roadmap guide when we send out the recording, but what I'm going to do is walk you through some of it, right? It's like 23 pages. It has a lot more detail, but I thought I'd give you a little taster. So there's a page here with the heading, Your Not So Secret Sauce. And there's actually a bit of extra stuff from the Don't Panic, It's Just Accessibility book. So that's been tucked into the back. And we've got one of those pages with the heading, You Care. Now what? So the 6 steps. That's it. Inventory, audit, plan, fix, train, and sustain. Each one of these steps builds on the last one. So really can't skip around. Trust me, we've seen people try, and it doesn't end well. But if you follow these in order, you'll get there. So, step 0. I know you're going, what? I start at 0 because this is the step everyone wants to skip. You've got to know what you've got. All of it. You can't fix what you don't know exists. And I guarantee you, you have more digital assets than you think you do. We do. So this is the inventory goal, right? Now we're going to talk about how to inventory. 4 things, right? List it, group it, assign owners, and tag the risk level, right? So you start with everything digital and public facing, group the smaller. I'm so sorry, I'm having a hard time today. Group similar things together. Like, so all your PDFs are go in one bucket and maybe all your web portals in another, right? Then you need to identify who owns what. So check your contracts and your SLAs because you need to know if your vendor is responsible for accessibility or if that's on you. Because, spoiler alert, it's on you anyway. But you might be able to get them to fix it. Finally, the last is tag everything as high, medium, or low risk. High risk, that's going to be like your main website, your online forms, anything people need to access services. Low risk might be that archived newsletter from 2019. I can't stress enough. Don't overthink this part. A rough cut is enough to get you started, right? You can refine this later. Then you're going to audit, right? So the goal of auditing is to find the problems, all of them. You can't fix what you don't know is broken, and I promise you, there is more broken than you think. So when we talk about how to audit, 3 things, right? So automated scanning, human testing, and document everything. You're going to run automated tools first. They're going to catch the obvious stuff and do it fast, right? But you can't stop there. You're going to need human eyes on this too. And most importantly, write it all down. This is the part that no one wants to do, and it's the part that's the most important. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Trust me, 6 months from now, when someone asks, didn't we already check that? You're going to want the receipts. Step 2, organizing the chaos. Right now, you've got a giant list of broken things, right? That's not particularly helpful. I just want us all to agree. You need to turn that mess into an actual plan, right? So you have 3 priorities. Impact first. Assign owners and set milestones. So you're going to start with the stuff that matters most, the things that keep people from getting the services they need. Then you're going to assign someone to own each piece. Not a committee, not a department, a person with a name. Trust me on that one. And then you're going to set real deadlines with real milestones because we'll get to it eventually is not a plan. Step 3, fix what matters and fix it well. Now, I want you to notice that I didn't say fix everything. I said fix what matters. There is a difference. You're aiming for an equal experience. Patchwork can be fine as long as outcomes are equitable. If you recognize this meme, you may know where it's going. It's an excited character with his arms up in the air and a broom, and this one says, fix all the things. And this is what everyone wants to do when they see their audit results. You want to fix everything at once. Me too. If my boss says to me one more time, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So yeah, fix it. Make it all accessible. That's the goal, right? Simple. But here's the reality version. This is the same character, but crying with the text, fix all the things? With a question mark. This meme is actually entitled, This is Why I'll Never Be an Adult, and it was about cleaning. But the point remains, you can't actually fix everything at once. You don't have the time, the budget, or the people. So you're going to have to make choices. When you find something that's not accessible, you really have four options, right? You can fix it and make it accessible. That's always the best choice when you can do it. You can archive it and restrict access, right? If nobody really needs it, maybe you take it down. I'm a firm believer in that nuke it from orbit. That's the only way you can be sure. Uh, you can offer an accessible alternative, right? But only if fixing the original is truly impossible. Uh, and lastly, you can try to claim undue burden, but you better bring the receipts because that's actually a really high bar to clear. Uh, it is available for a reason, right? But it's not something you could just blanket use. So when we're still on step 3 of fix and who does what, right? Uh, 4 teams need to be involved, right? Dev, content, design, and your vendors. So developers are going to handle the code stuff like focus order and keyboard nav and form labels, and content people are going to fix the words, right? Like alt text or using plain language or captions and transcripts. Like, honestly, we have generative AI. There's no excuse for not having transcripts in 2026, right? Uh, Jordan can attest to this. Designers tackle the visual stuff, like color contrast, what the focus states look like, right? Layouts that make sense, right? And the vendors, they should be fixing what they broke, assuming you can get them to cooperate. So if you can't fix a PDF, replace it. I know, but we've always done PDFs. Look, sometimes you can fix a PDF, but most of the time it's actually faster and cheaper to just convert that information into a proper web page. Print style sheets have been around for decades now, and I'm totally going to include a link. It's from the US government, right? It's called something like, Does That Really Need to Be a PDF? It's really awesome. Use HTML where possible. Remember that providing an alternative is really a last resort because parity matters, right? But it is a thing, and PDFs are really a bugbear for everyone when it comes to accessibility. So, moving along to step 4, train, right? You need to teach everyone who touches digital, right? So, this isn't just for your web team. Anyone who posts content or uploads files or creates documents or manages any part of your digital presence needs to know the basics. Honestly, I would argue procurement needs to know this too, right? Because you can fix everything today, right? You could have the world's most accessible website, but if people don't know how to keep it accessible, you're going to be back to where you started in 6 months. So step 5 is sustain. You need to bake it in, automate it. This can't be a one-time project. Accessibility is a living thing, right? Your site changes, your content changes, your tools change, right? You want to build accessibility checks into your workflow. So set up automated monitoring, track your progress, make this part of how you do business. This is your new normal. I did say I was going to cover what not to do, right? So, some common traps. This is the mistakes I see people make over and over again. These traps are going to slow you down, waste your money, and sometimes make things worse. So don't be these people. This has an image of Tappy the Siamese cat with his head in his paws. It's like a double face palm. Um, so, trap number 1, making it all about screen readers. Look, don't get me wrong here. Screen reader experiences absolutely matter. Um, and I'm actually going to talk about that first, because accessibility isn't one assistive tech, right? But here's an example I pulled from Reddit this week, right? Oh, this week. Thanks, notes. Uh, they were discussing using emojis in their social posts. So I just want you to think for a moment about how much you're actually noticing the icons and how bad that color contrast is on dark mode. But maybe you're not as familiar with screen readers. What might you think a screen reader user would hear when they encounter this post? Because it's actually Tear off calendar date 1 January 2026. Clock face 3 o'clock. Time 5:30 to 7:30. Round pushpin location my house. $ cost $5 entry fee. And that clock face 3 o'clock thing, that gets me every time. It does matter, right? We do need to be thinking about this, right? There are so many screen reader users, and it's not just people with visual impairments, right? I can't stress this enough. People use screen readers with mice, right? With their mouse. Uh, Particularly people who have ADHD, having it read out can actually be really useful. But if we focus on screen reader users and we forget about voice users, right? It's so easy to overlook how voice navigation interacts with your site. I just want to give you an example. Say what you see. What would you call this icon? Is it a basket? A trolley? A shopping cart? If your developer gives it an ARIA label that says basket, but there's no visible text, voice users who see a shopping cart and say click cart might get stuck. The screen reader gets basket, but the voice user has to guess. When the visible text matches the accessible name, everyone wins. So screen reader users get clear labels, voice users can navigate by what they see, and everyone's getting that same experience. Trap number 2, vendor trust. This is the sarcastic, sure, Jan meme from the Brady Bunch. Yes, I'm old. Your vendor says their product is fully accessible, right? They may even give you like a VPAT, the voluntary product accessibility template thing, or an ACR that says they're accessible. But here's the thing about most of these VPATs, they're self-reported. So it's kind of like asking someone if they're a good driver. Of course, they're going to say yes. So trust, but verify. Test it yourself. Because when the DOJ comes knocking, they're not going to care what your vendor promised. I said, it's on you. Trap number 3 is that PDF sprawl. This is a Toy Story meme with Woody looking distressed as Buzz Lightyear kind of points into the distance smiling. And this one says, inaccessible PDFs everywhere. Because PDFs multiply like rabbits. Right? You fix one, 3 more appear. Someone uploads a scanned document. Someone saves a Word file as a PDF without thinking about accessibility. Uh, it happens, right? The solution isn't necessarily to fix every PDF. The solution is to stop making so many PDFs. But most of that should be on a proper web page anyway, right? But this is a trap. At the very least, what you need to do is say, it stops now, right? We don't make any PDFs that don't pass at least all these checks, right? From here on out, because remediation is the worst task in accessibility. Yeah, and if you're just adding to the backlog and adding to the pile, you're never going to get on top of it. The 4th trap is inaccessible portals. This is another meme. It says Google requires 3 forms of authentication when logging in. Me, image from Lord of the Rings with Sam saying, "It's me, you're Sam. Don't you know you're Sam?" You spend all this time making your main website accessible, and then you send people to that third-party portal that's completely inaccessible. It's like building a ramp to your front door and then having stairs inside. So you need to check your portals, all of them, because that's where people are actually engaging with you, right? The biggest trap of all, we'll fix it later. This is a fairly famous meme. It's a dog sitting in a burning room, smiling and saying, "This is fine." Look, everyone loves this plan, right? Launch now, fix accessibility later. What could go wrong? But what goes wrong is that later never comes, right? The budget gets cut, priorities change, new features take precedence. And meanwhile, you're excluding people from your services every single day. Plus, fixing accessibility after the fact costs about 10 times more than building it in from the start. Congratulations, you just made your problem more expensive and more urgent. I always say, do it right or do it twice. Right, enough warnings. Let's talk about what you're going to do. Here's your checklist, right? It's the same 6 steps we just walked through. So print it out, put it on your wall, check things off as you go. But remember, you need to do the first 4 in order. I know at the beginning I said you should do them all in order, but you can't skip ahead. You don't want to do it all at once, right? You do it one step at a time, except that you kind of could do 4 and 5 at the same time, right? If you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, it's most of us, right? Here are the 5 things that will give you the biggest bang for your buck. Your high traffic pages, right? So fix your home page and your most visited pages first. Google Analytics is free. There's lots of other analytic solutions. They seem to be quite popular, so you should have some idea of where people are going. Broken forms. If people can't complete your forms, they can't get services. And that's actually what got the Department of Justice's attention back in 2020. It was a form on Rite Aid's website. Required PDFs, the ones that people actually need to use to access stuff. Captions on videos, especially if you're posting informational content. And logins, because if someone can't get into the system, nothing else really matters, does it? If you focus on these 5 categories and you address the most common complaints and the highest legal risk, right? So when I said, what about today? Right? So here's what you're going to do today. Not next week, not after your next meeting, today. Pick one page, run a scan on it, tab through with your keyboard, make one fix. That's it. One page, one scan, one tab test, one fix. You're going to learn more from doing that than from reading 100 articles about accessibility. There is a lot more to keyboard navigation than this, right? But if you can't use a mouse, the main way to navigate the web is by using 3 buttons, right? These may be buttons you press with your hands or your feet or your head, or it may be a method like sip and puff system that you use your breath, but you can get the general idea by using your keyboard. So check this out.
Imagine you're browsing a website on your computer. I bet you're pretty reliant on your mouse for clicking on things. I know I am. But what if you couldn't use a mouse? How would that work? Like this. This is keyboard navigation, sometimes called tabbed browsing. The tab key steps through every part of the page that can be clicked on, and the enter key acts like a single left mouse click. Sounds simple, right? It can be if the site is designed with this type of user in mind. Here's a common problem. Can you tell where we are on the page? Well, I wasn't expecting that. The box around the clickable item should be obvious so that users who are navigating your site with their keyboard can see where they are. Now you may be thinking, that box is ugly. It does not go with my site design. Don't worry, it will never be seen by anyone who doesn't need it. It's true. When you move your mouse over an element, you get the hover state. You've probably seen this a lot. But that highlighting box isn't hover, it's focus. You can only see the focus state and that highlight box if you tab to it using your keyboard. Hover and focus are separate and can be set to be completely different in your website's code. So make sure the focus state is really obvious with a bright, contrasting color. It won't change what your mouse-using visitors will see, but it will make your site a lot more friendly to those who are using their keyboard. Everyone deserves access to the internet.
Hopefully that gave you the gist. So focus order, right? Make it make sense. When someone tabs through your page, they should move through it in a logical order, right? Left to right, top to bottom, a bit like reading a book. So real quick, the images you're seeing is like a pretty standard site on mobile. The second image has a quite, erratic set of focus order steps. And the third one, it goes kind of where you think it should, right? So none of this tab, suddenly you're at the bottom of the page, then back to the top, and having a scavenger hunt no one asked for. And This one is like skip link, the top left logo to go home, the hamburger menu, the big first call to action button, right? The form fields are in sequence, right? All of that makes sense. Uh, just a side note, if you're checking this on your phone, don't use an Apple product. It overrides the focus order to put it in what it thinks is the correct one. So if there's a problem, you won't be able to see it. Need to use Android. So, focus states. As you saw in the video, when someone tabs to an element, right, when they're using the keyboard to navigate, they need to see where they are, right? That's what focus states do. And this is something that is generally in the remit of your designers, right? So all of these work. Frankly, it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it's visible and obvious. Um, the bottom one is jokingly called the Oreo cookie. It's a universal focus state made by Eric Crows. That code is going to be included in the roadmap PDF we're sending out because I like quick wins, right? So if I can say, here's a like some code for CSS that you could just cut and paste, and when I say universal focus state, I mean it works no matter where it shows up, right? I think that's kind of awesome. Yeah. Is it the prettiest thing in the world? Maybe not. Yeah. But as I said in the video, this is about making sure it works. Color contrast. Text needs enough contrast against this background so people can actually read it, right? So for normal text, and this isn't defined well as far as I'm concerned, you need a 4.5 to 1, right? So that's why you can see we've got a 4.5 to 1 with gray on white and a 4.7 to 1 with kind of an orangey on blue. Uh, the highest contrast ratio you can get is black on white or white on black, which is 21 to 1. So try not to go below the minimum, right? Yes, there are things that can be 3 to 1, but as a general rule, if you aim for at least 4.5 to 1, it's going to work better for everyone. Uh, if you're looking at a page and you're not using a tool, uh, if you squint at the screen, I know this sounds silly, but trust me on this. The text or the icons may actually disappear, and that's a sign that your color contrast is bad. Tooling. Um, use tools everyone can use, right? The best tool is not the fanciest. It's the one people actually use. So if it requires a 3-hour training and a PhD in regret, it's going to gather dust. I'm looking at you, Google Analytics. So don't overcomplicate this. Like, honestly, enterprise level accessibility scanning tools are awesome, right? I work for SoakTide, but you can start with free tools your whole team can actually use right now. Honestly, we're just not that far from the end of April. Uh, so something that may make your life easier, we actually have a free accessibility toolbar. It works in Chrome and not Internet Explorer, Edge. It's free. It catches a ton of obvious problems like missing alt text, poor heading structure, dodgy link labels, color contrast. You can install it, run it on your pages, and fix what it finds. It doesn't keep a history. It doesn't do any reporting, right? It's not like a project management tool, and it's not really something you can use effectively to kind of document what's going on in your changes without doing extra work, right? But it is a perfect way to start today, right? It's a free browser extension. Just log in, off you go. So you need to start where you are, right? And then keep going. I know it can feel overwhelming, but like I'm gonna keep saying it. You don't have to be perfect on day one. You have to be better than you were yesterday, right? So pick that one page, fix that one thing, then pick another page, fix another thing, right? It's progress, not perfection. If you decide you want help, we're here. SoapTide does automated testing for everyday checks and team-wide visibility and that history you might need. We do manual audits to dig deeper and uncover the stuff the tools can't catch. So like I said, humans. We offer consultancy to guide you through strategy, fixes, and even culture change, right? No jargon, no scare tactics, just actual support from people who care and who get it. Because this stuff matters. and we believe you can do it. One fix at a time, one page at a time. So if you want backup, we're just a click away. As I mentioned, free resources, right? We'll include the link for the ADA roadmap, right? That's a far more detailed version of like what I just kind of walked you through. Uh, we'll give you the PDF and the HTML version. See, like I said, we use PDFs. We also have an ultimate guide to web accessibility, everything you need to know in one place. That actually includes a full run through of WCAG with cats, and easy to understand examples. Um, it's all free, it's all practical, and it's all designed to actually help you get this done. You can find all of these and more in our resources section on the website at soaktide.com, right? The ADA roadmap, a field guide for mobile screen readers so you can try it yourself. Uh, no kidding, give us 45 minutes and you're never going to look at your phone the same way. Uh, remember, we're all about changing hearts and minds, right? So that's what our free resources are all about. Empathy. So you might notice this slide looks a little bit different. I stole it from an old deck because Jordan is here with us today. Uh, we're on YouTube, so come learn web accessibility with cats. We actually made most of these videos together. So if you like them, we'd love the clout to make more. So as a last thought, I want to leave you with this quote from Steve Krug. He wrote a book many years ago called Don't Make Me Think. It was about web design back in like 2000. How many opportunities do we have to dramatically improve people's lives just by doing our job a little better? That's what this is really about, right? It's not compliance, it's not avoiding lawsuits. It's about making sure everyone in your community can access the services they need. And that's worth doing right. Small, thoughtful improvements change real lives. That's the work. Okay, we have about 15 minutes to do Q&A, and I have no idea if anyone's been chatting or anything. Uh,
Yes, they have been chatting. Thank you, Jess. Yeah, we've got a few questions here. So the first one, I'm at a state agency with federal funding. Do these standards apply to internal facing material as well as external?
well, that's where it gets super fun, right? Because Title II is seems to be more focused on public facing, right? But it gets complicated because fundamentally internal facing stuff, right? Your employees need to be able to access it too, right? So if you've got software that teaches them something or their software they need to be able to, answer calls, right? All of those kind of things actually do need to be accessible. But how you check those is going to be a little more complicated. Because, like in a nutshell, you can use free checkers on things that you can access. But if you use something more like Soaktide, right, you'd have to help us help you to get through the login to access the other software too. You know what I mean? To like be able to look at it. But unfortunately or fortunately, uh, you are required to make sure that everything is accessible, right? It's just that I suspect what you have internally facing uh, may be better. Uh, it might not be. Right. I guess what I'm trying to say is it is important. It does matter, right? But when it comes to like how this is going to be approached and enforced, that's more of a question mark, right? But it does apply to internal facing material, right? Because as I said, like if there's one thing I've heard, not from government, right? But from a lot of private sector people I've known over the years and met at conferences, is this idea that like, but we don't have any customers who have disabilities. We don't have any employees who have disabilities, right? And I'm always like, yeah, but you have, restrooms that are available for people with wheelchairs, right? This is just something that you should be doing, and taking care of, because otherwise you're shutting the door on having customers with disabilities or employees with disabilities, and that's actually illegal. Uh, Sorry, I don't know if that helped.
No problem at all. Okay, this next one's been asked in a number of times in a number of different ways. Does all of this, including the deadlines, apply to the private sector, or is it just state and local governments?
The private sector has been on the hook for this for years. Um, okay, so what's weird about this is that the Department of Justice kind of didn't get involved when it was the private sector, right? They've left it to the courts, right? Which is why I wanted to talk so much about standing. Uh, in America, when it comes to like, I can't access your thing because it's inaccessible, this is gonna sound awful, but the only real recourse you have as a regular human, right, is to send them a letter, maybe to be like, hey, could you fix this? And then to sue them. Right? You go to court, ask for injunctive relief, right? Where you're like, can you make your website better? You're clearly not doing it, so I need the court to tell you you need to do it, right? That has kind of become a little bit of a cottage industry, and there's some everyone has opinions on this. I think that is the way the situation works. I just think it's unfortunate. I really wish we could all just be a bit better. But the reality is, it ends up costing money, right? Like, you end up paying for lawyers to defend yourself. You end up in situations where, maybe you settle out of court and now you're out that money too. I know of one case where a company fought it, right? But in the end, they won, right? They went to court, they won, but they were out $15,000 from paying their own lawyers. Yeah, they did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. And people were like, well, we're going to try to get the 15 grand back from the other lawyers. Right? And they were like, no, right? That's part of what's going on is Kansas and some other states are putting in laws, where it's like an automatic, countersuit of like, you have cost me this much money setting up my legal defense. So if I win, I want it back. Because fundamentally, if you sue over the ADA, one of the things that happens is that your legal costs get covered by who you're suing, right? That's part of why there seems to be an incentive. But it's worth noting that while there has been a huge increase, like a 40% increase in the past year on what they call pro se litigation, which is to say people suing without a lawyer, right? They're using AI, believe it or not, but they're going to federal court. Um, so it's a really kind of wild, scary terrain as far as I'm concerned. But fundamentally, the private sector has been dealing with this. There are between 4,000 and 5,000 lawsuits a year in the U.S. The problem is that the number seems to be climbing. Last I knew, I think in this first quarter, we're already getting substantially higher than the previous year. Again, like, I wish it wasn't like this, right? And I hate having to talk about litigation as the solution, but it is something you need to be aware of because it is happening. And I think because Title II is changing to have a specific WCAG 2.1 AA, just like Title III has had this whole time, right? It's a lot easier to argue that in court, right? So I'm kind of concerned that that was going to be the solution. And I think if the Department of Justice backs off and is like, look, we're going to give you more time or enforce this differently, that we may be in a situation where people feel like their only option, to get the changes they need is to go to court. Oh man, above all else, especially if you're private, right? Make sure you have an accessibility statement, explain what you're doing, God help me, tell them what you know is wrong, right? That you're working on, and give them a way to contact you. So if they have a problem, they have someone they can reach out to before they feel like their only answer is to go to court. part of this is about meeting people halfway. Yeah, and I think we could all be a bit better about that. Do you think that helped?
I think so. We have a couple of questions about videos. I'm just going to kind of
Ooh.
merge them together. So that they're basically asking, what is our transcripts a good alternative if audio description isn't feasible? Because as we know, because we worked on videos, sometimes you can't fit the audio description into like the moments of pause in the video, you know,
Oh yeah.
and it can be a lot more work to also then re-upload a longer version of the video. So would a descriptive transcript compensate for that?
Oh, Jordan, why don't you take this one?
Sure thing. Yes, this is something we practice at Saltide. So a transcript isn't just the dialogue, it's also the actions and the key visuals on the screen. The way we approach it, because another person asked how to implement this, where we have videos embedded on the Saltide website, we have little drop downs that say transcript for the video, and that will just expand and give people basically a long script of the video, a text version, which I believe Jess is going to demonstrate for us.
I think we've got some in WCAG standard, don't we? So we go to like
Yes, we went all out for these transcripts.
right, so video and then the full transcript with screenshots and visual descriptions.
Yeah, so this one was really kind of to hammer the point home because we also included screenshots of the video, which is not normally required for a transcript, just to be clear. As long as it's readable through text, then that's how you create a transcript essentially. But we included screenshots here because we think there's people who don't necessarily want to watch a video. Maybe they can speed read, they don't want to, or they don't have access to audio, and they're like, you know what, just let me read it. So I think, yeah, we decided to put screenshots in here. But again, this isn't necessary for a transcript as long as it's in a text format and you write the visual descriptions. Because as you can see there, we put like Jessica colon followed by her dialogue, then visual colon followed by a description of what's happening at that point in the video. And that essentially gets you there. Do you think that answered the question, Jess?
I'd like to think so. The one thing I want to say is that there is a difference between a transcript and a descriptive transcript, right? And to be honest, sometimes you run into these things where you don't realize that there's a difference because you thought transcripts should have all those things anyway. So, um, when Jordan and I started making videos, because we were doing captions, once you have a caption file, a transcript is actually really easy, right? You just rip out the timings. Um, but we were like, but we need to describe what's here because we were thinking of audio description, right? So it just kind of flowed naturally from that we thought it was important to include visual descriptions. The reality is it can be really difficult to hit the kind of audio description where it does fit into the pauses, right? And as someone mentioned, to pause the video to add audio description makes for a much longer experience, and means you have to upload a second video, et cetera, et cetera. I actually really like descriptive transcripts. I think they're kind of awesome. I am the kind of person who will go read that instead uh, because it's faster. Um, but I think everyone's a little bit different. It's just one of those things where, with the onset of LLMs and AI, that making transcripts, at least that first pass, right? You may have to go read it yourself and go like, "What? That is not what I said," you know. But it makes it so much easier and so much faster. So I'm kind of like snarky about this, like I am with PDFs, because I feel like with the technology we have, it's really important to make transcripts and to make descriptive transcripts because there's nothing else that someone who is deaf and blind can use to understand your video content. I know transcripts are AAA, but I think they matter, and I think they're a lot easier to make now.
Yes, definitely. Agreed. All right, this might be the last one, given the time. What do you do if your organization has so many PDFs? It's just not realistic to convert them all into a HTML document or maybe an EPUB document. What do you recommend in that scenario about making sure these PDFs are accessible?
Uh, okay, I'd start with asking how many of them you actually need, right? When I said PDFs multiply like rabbits, so does content, right? Like we were looking at our blog and it was like, wait, how did it get to like that many? And over time, they just build up, right? Um, so one of the first things I would suggest you do is look at your analytics and find out if you're tracking downloads. Um, Not to plug Silktide too hard or anything, but our analytics automatically track downloads because we want to know if people are downloading your PDFs. So being able to look at a list and be like, hey, no one's downloaded this for like 30 days. Do we even need this content? Right? That's part of the reason I'm like, cull it, right? Go through and be like, do we need this? Is it actually worth it? Right? Is this adding anything? Would it be worth what we know has to go into it to do the remediation? Right? That's for the reason that I'm like, you need to draw a line in the sand and be like, from here on out, nothing is a PDF that isn't at least, what accessibility can be done to PDFs. Because that way you're not adding to the backlog and the pile of stuff that needs to be looked at. But honestly, like when there's that many, you've got to prioritize by what people are using, right? What's actually necessary. And remember that archiving is a viable option, right? So like if you're like, you know what, this content needs to stay up because of legal reasons, maybe. Yeah, in the UK, like they have some weird stuff about keeping things for 7 years. Uh, but fundamentally, like if it's not something people are engaging with, it's not something they need. Looking at archiving, looking at removing it, those are actually your best options because you need to get down to what people actually need to engage with you, right? And if they need it and they're using it, then you've really got to make sure it's okay. And trust me, I know we've got so many PDFs in Sulktide that like you're just like, oh my word, yeah. Um, but the main thing is making sure that you're not adding to the problem, right? Once you say this is how we're going to do it, Jordan, make a note. We need to send out the blog post, the How I Learned to Love PDFs. Uh, Not written by me, mind you. um, but it's got a lot of advice as to like what you can do in say InDesign so that like the PDFs you create, like you start from kind of a templated place where they'll just be better in the first place, right? Because as I said, so much of this is going to be about saying from here on out we do it differently. But some of it's going to be like looking at again checkers, like find out it's possible that some of your PDFs are fine, right? But again, like it's that inventory audit, right? Figure out where things stand. Yeah, because if you are just overwhelmed by the number of them, like it's very easy to get stuck and then not do anything, right? Just be like, can't deal, right? So like I said, analytics, if you know things are being used because you're like, this is a PDF, say it's a thing they fill out and have to send in. Like there's lots of reasons to use PDFs, right? Then you need to make sure those ones get addressed first. But it is going to be an ongoing thing. And that's part of the reason that I keep saying, like, you need to be able to document what you're doing, what steps you're taking, because what it comes down to is, are you making it better? Yeah. And that's what the Department of Justice is going to be looking for, and that's what your constituents are going to be looking for too. If there were any other questions in the Q&A we didn't get to, we will address them in the email we sent out. Uh, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for coming today and listening, and we'll send you out the recording and the transcript and whatnot within a few days. And if you have any questions, feel free to either ping the Soaktide chat or you can drop me an email at jessicachambers@soaktide.com. Okay, thanks everyone.